I just want to be remembered as someone that had a vision, took risks, and did whatever it took to achieve the goal that I had in my mind.
Jay Williams, the man who started a multi-million-dollar business with just $200.
When I look back at what Hoodrich did, I feel like we kicked down the door. Hip-hop and drill, urban culture, that was going through a period where it was on its rise, and Hoodrich was rising with it at the same time. 20 years old, I was living with my parents. I was working, but I didn't have any savings. I wanted to prove to myself that, you know, if I put my mind to something, I could achieve something. I would just tell the younger generation or the younger me.
Left the hood, I said I would.
Why go on podcasts now versus in the past you haven't? You've stayed behind the scenes.
I just always knew I'll know when the time's right, when I'm ready to sit down comfortably and just, you know, speak about my story. Yeah, you guys are kind of hearing it first.
Left the hood, I said I would. I left the hood, I said I would.
This feels fucking weird, don't it? Back in the studio. Yeah. Kye's got no moustache. The comments have been getting to me, guys. Actually, no, do you know what? It wasn't the comments. It was Curtis's nan. She was really nasty about me on the Nigel Farage podcast. So we're trying a new look. Let me know.
What did she say about it?
I can't remember, but it was something just really strong and opinionated about how much she hated it and I need to get rid of it and all of that. And I just thought, do you know what?
It's usually the guests that bring it up as well.
Yeah.
But out of all those cool, respectable guests that we've had on, none of them fazed you. But as soon as Curtis's nan gets involved, suddenly it's gone.
We know how he is with gilfs. he loves a bit of that, doesn't it?
All right, cool. Let's fucking get into this.
Thanks for coming down, Jay. Really appreciate you coming on the pod. I was looking at your Instagram before you're coming on, and one of the posts said, I'll read the caption.
Okay.
It feels better because I did it my way. What does that mean to you?
So that just means that, you know, I had an idea and I just, you know, I got to work and I just did it kind of, initially I did it on my own. I just did it how I wanted to. And, you know, I got to a stage where I was, you know, living life on my own terms and just, you know, living out my dreams. So,
Is that how it had to be for you?
yeah, I think so, because I couldn't see myself doing like a 9-to-5 long term. I just don't think that the way how I'm wired, it would, you know, work. I just feel like I always knew that I wanted a lot more for myself.
Was there a moment you felt like I need to get out of this 9-to-5 grind, or some kind of rock bottom moment?
I left college and I worked in Iceland for 2.5 years, and then I got an apprenticeship working at an electronic cigarette company. It's funny now because they're also popular, but back then they weren't that popular, and it was like an office job. And I'd go into the office and I'd just make calls. So I had a spreadsheet and I'd have to ring like managers of shops and ask them if they wanted any more stock and how they was getting on. So that, when I was doing that, I just knew that this isn't what I want to do forever. I wouldn't say that was rock bottom for me, but it was definitely something where I just thought, do you know what, this kind of job isn't for me long term. So yeah.
What do you think is different about you that you decided inside yourself that you needed to do more? Why couldn't you put up with it?
I just think from an early age, I was watching like MTV Cribs and MTV Base, and I just saw a lot of things that was really inspiring to me. I saw how like rappers were living, you know, the kind of houses they was living in, the kind of cars that they was driving. So that just opened up my mind, and I started to think, right, they're just like me in terms of they're human and they've achieved this and they have this. So I just started to think, oh, I can do that. Why can't I do that? It's obviously possible because I'm seeing somebody else with it. So that's when I knew that, you know, I didn't want to live an average life when I got older. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I just knew I had big dreams and big aspirations.
And why was clothing the route that you decided to take?
From a very early age, I took like pride in like my appearance. So I was inspired a lot by like Pharrell and 50 Cent. So I'd try and dress like them with the baggy jeans, the white sneakers, and like the oversized tees. And then when I got older, my friend introduced me to streetwear. So I started to get into like American streetwear. And I don't know, I was just obsessed with like buying clothes, and I just the feeling I got from like ordering clothes and just, you know, having a fresh outfit. it's kind of hard to explain, but that was just my thing. So I just think that naturally, you know, I just had a passion for clothing. But when I was younger, I didn't realize that it was a passion and that it could be like, let's say, monetized.
So I think it's so interesting because like a lot of people like clothes. Everybody seems to like clothes. But the thing with the fashion industry is that you're competing with giants, and everybody is sort of like fueled by ego. Like, why would they wear your clothes when they could wear some Moncler or some Ralph Lauren or something like that?
Yeah.
So if there was someone at home who wanted to start a clothing brand, like what gave you the right to do that? Why did you feel like you could do that and other people feel like they can't?
So I didn't think too much into it. When I was 20, my mindset was just like, I'm going to start a brand. If people wear it, they wear it. If they don't, they don't. So yeah, what happened was I started with, 30 t-shirts, and they just kind of friends of friends sold. But I think that I had a bit of a reputation that I'd built up for like how I dressed and, what I was into. So I think that did kind of help, and that helped, me get the brand out there a little bit more. So like my I wouldn't call it a personal brand at the time, but let's say like my personal brand did kind of play a part in it as well.
And what year was this when it all started or when you started? What year was this?
So I started the brand in 2014. I was 20 years old at the time.
So at this time remind me, where was social media? Was Instagram a thing?
Yeah, so Instagram was a thing. So I remember promoting on Instagram. I think I had a Twitter as well, but yeah, just Instagram mainly, Twitter, no Snapchat, definitely no TikTok, obviously.
And were there any techniques that you used to grow the brand through social media at that time?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that because I haven't thought about this in a long time, but I just thought about it the other day. There'd be like pages that had a lot more followers, and I'd just pay them for like shout outs and stuff like that. So I'd do that. I wasn't running ads at the time, so it was just very organic. I remember like getting 500 followers and just being very happy with that, and then it grows to 1,000, and I remember the feeling. But yeah, it was very, very organic back then. I was getting rappers, they'd come from London to do shows in Birmingham, and I'd go and meet them like at the events, and I'd just be giving out clothes. So it was just all that sort of stuff really, just trying to hustle and just promote the brand in any way I can.
Do you remember the first time you saw someone wearing your clothes in public? Because I know the first time we saw someone that actually watched our videos, it's crazy. Like the online world became real because that person was an actual fan of what we did.
Yeah.
Do you remember that moment for you?
I don't know if I remember like the first person I saw wearing it publicly, but what I do remember is I remember selling the first t-shirts and people was posting on Instagram. I think a few people one of the people actually went to Leeds Carnival, and they posted a photo, and I remember saying to my girlfriend at the time, that's sick because, they're in Leeds, they're wearing the brand. I was just thinking about the amount of people that were going to see him in that t-shirt. So yeah.
So Jay started his business Hoodrich by generating leads from his smartphone and selling clothes from the boot of his car. I mean, this is great when you're starting out, but it can only take you so far. So let me tell you about a tool that can hopefully save your business money, maximize profits, and help you generate more leads. It's called NetSuite, and it's made by the sponsor of today's episode, NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one platform. This means you can save money by cancelling any other subscriptions because NetSuite pretty much has it all. You can also access NetSuite from anywhere in the world because it lives in the cloud, which means you don't need to pay for any expensive hardware. Not only that, but you can bring all of your major business processes into one platform, slashing manual tasks and potential errors. So why wait? Join the 37,000 other businesses graduating to NetSuite. And also, backed by popular demand, NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind flexible finance program for a few more weeks. So if that interests you, go to netsuite.com/SIB. That's netsuite.com/SIB. Okay, back to the episode.
How do you view the connection between music and hip hop music that, you were meeting all these artists at the time and giving them a clothing? How do you see that connection between the fashion industry and the music industry?
Yeah, it's that connection super important. I think music culture, fashion culture goes hand in hand. when I was looking at, ways to promote, I was definitely thinking about rappers and artists that could, wear the brand and wear it in music videos. So I think that, what happened is hip hop and that kind of like drill, urban culture, that was going through a period where it was on its rise, and Hoodrich was rising with it at the same time. And then when that, broke into like the mainstream markets, the artists were wearing the brand. So naturally we kind of followed and went with them as
What
well.
kind of artists, are there any household names that people watching might know that were those first instigators of wearing Hoodrich?
Yeah, so I had, back in the day, like Sneakbo was wearing it, Mostack put it on early. I had like Mist, had quite a few. I had like JK was wearing it. Yeah.
And are you forming connections with these guys at the same time, or is it just here's a t-shirt, never see you again?
Yeah, I was forming connections with them, to be fair. And keeping in touch. And just, if they had like music videos, or if they were going away or whatever, would send them product. And even till now, the team, I know who was supporting from early. So if they reach out, I'll make sure that we send them something, definitely.
It's a cool example really of influencer marketing before it really existed, before it was a term. And obviously now it's the proven model. We've seen it with Gymshark. We've seen it with various other brands where their rise of the brand itself is through these influencers. It's obviously getting very saturated because everyone's catching on and that's what everyone's doing. So for someone watching this at home that's maybe starting a brand now from scratch, how would you approach things differently?
Ooh, I think you still want to get the right people wearing your product. Definitely. I think that I would probably utilize TikTok a lot and create, interesting content. It's going to be a lot of, trial and error, but I think that what sells now is just being authentic. I think a lot of people like to see like the behind the scenes. They like to follow like brand owners, and they like to see a brand that's being very transparent with the whole process and like what they do. So I think that can be very beneficial when you're trying to, build an audience, and, you want your audience to buy into the product, because you can get them with like the lifestyle element, and then, the product is like, let's say, the icing on the cake. So yeah.
What would you say is more important, the name Hoodrich for you, or the actual marketing you did behind the scenes? Like, if you had a different name, would you be as successful as you are today?
So I definitely think the name plays a part, but then I've looked at brands that have just like random names, and they're, a lot bigger than Hoodrich. So it's definitely a combination. I think having a good name, it does help, and having a name that, is catchy, let's say, that definitely plays a part. But there's so much more than just the name. And I learned that, down the line, like it gets to a stage where it's not just about clothes anymore. It's about like building relationships. Obviously, as you go on the journey, you learn more about, the business side of things. And it just becomes a lot more, just a lot more difficult, and it just wasn't what it once was from the early days.
For sure. And I mean, you can see it as well, because there are some brands out there that are basically the same clothing as another brand. There might be a small logo that's different, but the culture or the feeling around that brand is totally different. So I want to get into, how you craft that culture and build that brand. But just on the name quickly, how did you come up with Hoodrich as a name?
Yeah, so Hoodrich is like an American name term, which I heard listening to like rap music when I was in my teen years. So I'd just listen to like mixtapes from America, and, I just heard the rappers use the word. And then one day I used the Urban Dictionary to like see what it actually meant. And when I researched it, it meant someone that has nice things, but like lives in the hood and doesn't really have any like aspirations or like direction for their life. They're just kind of going through life day to day. And I thought, that's interesting, because that related to me at 20 years old. I was living with my parents. I was working, but I didn't have any savings. I would just, get paid. I just didn't think about it. I'd just spend all my money on like clothes and just stuff like that. And I just didn't know what I wanted to really do. So I was like, you know what, that's actually interesting. I'm going to call the brand Hoodrich, and I'm going to, give it a slogan, from nothing to something, flip it on its head, turn it into something positive. And the whole reason behind that is I wanted to prove to myself that, if I put my mind to something, I could achieve something. So Hoodrich, it's about a transition. So hood is somewhere where you're at in life. It could be, school, your job, where you live. Rich is somewhere where you want to get to, where you aspire to be. So it's about that transition. So going from like hood rich, and it's really about me and my journey.
So now you've made it out of the hood and into the rich, and you've gone from nothing to something, as you say. How do you stay connected or understand what that community want, that first target audience? How do you relate
it's
to them
like you
anymore?
read my mind. I was thinking that exact question right there. But yeah.
Yeah, I think because I've lived and breathed the brand, almost 10 years now. And, I work closely with my team, and I have a good understanding of, what the market is still looking for. And I'd like to say I'm still like grounded, and I'm still in touch. And despite the success that the brand's had, I don't feel like, I've changed. So I feel like I can still relate to what the customer wants and what they would be looking for. So I just think it stems from that, and just, seeing what like the kids are wearing, speaking to people, seeing, how we could improve the brand, and just staying like open-minded, not thinking that you've got it all figured out, because we still do have a long way to go as a brand.
Are you still like in and around your old life? Because I see this with a lot of rappers and people in all walks of life, really, is that like you make it, but you can't take your friends with you. But then you don't want to leave that old life and your old connections. So you're sort of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah, I think that I'm still very, tapped in with, how I used to be and how, my life was. But I do think that, with where the brand's got to, I've had to grow as a person and, just kind of get on with my life and do new things and experience new things. But I still think I'm able to manage and balance it quite well.
Fashion goes in cycles. We all know that. And there's brands can sometimes, or trends and brands can be here and then they'll go here and then they're cyclical. They'll come back round. So how do you approach that? How do you feel about that? And how do you make sure that your brand doesn't die out and it stays relevant all the time?
Yeah, so I think you have to have a long-term, strategy, and everybody who's involved in the brand has to be, on board with, where we want the company to be in, let's say, like 10, 20 years time. And you just work backwards from that, and you make decisions based on the longevity of the brand. So yeah, it all starts with, everybody being aligned, and then, we make decisions based on what we think is going to be best for the longevity of the brand.
And do you ever think about that it might get overhyped or overdone and therefore become cringy or fall off?
So that's definitely a possibility, as, anything can happen. But I think you can't think too much about that or look too deeply into it. I think we just focus on doing our best work and, just constantly trying to improve the brand and the product and the quality. And, the rest should take care of itself.
And you mentioned there briefly, thinking about the future and where things will be in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time. So where will Hoodrich be in 20 years' time?
So we want Hoodrich to be a household name, like on a global scale. We want to remain, authentic, true to our DNA. And Hoodrich is about, it's about my journey going from nothing to something. And I want that to be reflected through the brand ethos. So a lot of giving back, doing a lot of, community projects, and just, encouraging and inspiring the youth, the next generation, to, go and chase their dreams. I think about when I was younger, I didn't really have anyone who was doing what I'm doing now to kind of listen to or look at as, like, let's say, a role model. So I think that, the brand can play a big part in that as well. So yeah.
Are you satisfied with your success so far?
I'm proud, but I'm not satisfied. There's there's a lot more left on the table. You know, I'm happy with, you know, where the brand's got to, but it's 10 years this August, and I genuinely believe that we've just laid the foundations and we're just getting started. We've just figured everything out, so now we can go on to, you know, do what we've always wanted to do, because, you know, it does take that infrastructure, it does take that team, it takes getting those processes right, it takes a lot. And you know, in business, you'll be doing things and some things won't work. So there's that process of trial and error. So yeah, I just think that, yeah, we're literally just getting started.
I think we need to like bring it back a little bit to sort of like where this all started, because you say that you're only just now laying the foundations, but of course, you know, you are 10 years deep and a lot has happened since then. When I think about starting a clothing brand, I think that a lot of people will think that it seems difficult, because even for me, like I started my first business and I done fairly well, but I was just selling products on eBay. So a very, very low barrier to entry. Whereas with what you've done, you know, I need to create a brand. I need to create a logo. I need to deal with trademarks. I need to source this stock. I then need to set, you know, there's a lot of moving parts and stuff like that. So how did you navigate that in the early days, and how can other people replicate a similar thing if that's what they wanted to do?
So in the early days, I did a lot of research, and again, I started small. So I actually started with screen printing t-shirts, and, you know, just built it up from that. And then I learned that, you know, you can get things manufactured from scratch, which is like called cut and sew. So, you know, just from research, there were some local people doing some cut and sew. Like I used seamstresses. Then I found some guys that could manufacture out of Pakistan, which could do like low minimums. So again, that was a process of just trying different things, because I remember getting things from Pakistan and not everything was necessarily how I wanted it to be. But, you know, I had the mindset of just figuring it out, like the next step. But I think, to be specific to your question, I think that people who want to start a clothing brand, I would suggest that they start small. Don't like dive into getting too much stock, and try and find like local people who can help you like make samples and do things that way, because then you're not going to have too much risk if you're like buying loads of product, and then you can get feedback from people and just go from there.
And when you were building from the start, was it a gradual journey, or are there any key pillars that you can identify where the brand almost went up a step and went up a step? And if so, what were they?
Yeah, so after 3.5 years, I got approached by Asylum. So Asylum buyer reached out to me, and he basically was like, I've been following the brand for a couple of years now, really like what you're doing. Is there any way we can set up a meeting to see if, you know, we could go stock Hoodrich in stores? And then a couple of weeks later, I got an email from my business partners at the time who reached out offering help. So when I went to meet with those guys, they explained to me, you know, a little bit about their background, what they could do. One of them had a streetwear shop in East London back in the day and was the ex-agent for Rockaware, so which is Jay-Z streetwear brand. So straight away, I knew like these guys obviously have some knowledge and things that I don't have. Ended up giving those guys 50% of the company to help with production, finance, logistics, and then I headed up like the creative side of the business, which is what I was good at and which was what I wanted to do.
Was that hard to do? Yeah, because from that saying you wanted to do it your way, obviously you can't do it entirely your way now if they've got 50% of the business. Now you're in it with a partner.
And 50%'s a lot, and then you're split straight down the middle as well. There's no 51-49 going on here, things like that. You know, do you stand by that decision?
Yeah, so looking back now, it was a risk, but it was a good decision, because that's when everything took off, because now I had, you know, knowledge, had financial backing, I had more resources, you know, I had partners which was going to help me get to the next level. So yeah, looking back, it was a risk, but Hoodrich wouldn't have got to the stage that it is now, you know, without that help. And at the time, I didn't know too much about like, you know, having partners and stuff like that. But as I, you know, got further down in my business career, I noticed that like a lot of other, you know, brands and businesses do have partners, and it is a common thing. it's all it depends. It might work for some people, it might not work for people. I can only speak about, obviously my experience.
Have you ever had any like disagreements with your business partners?
So I think having like disagreements is normal. I think that's all part of the process, because obviously people see things in different ways, but we're all grown adults, we talk it out, and we just figured it out, and nothing was ever detrimental. So
I think there's a great message there about having 50% of something massive rather than 100% of something small. Another good message, of course, about leaning into your strengths and identifying where you are best, and then filling in those gaps with people that are better than you, and allowing people that are more knowledgeable and experienced to come in and help you. Because I think a lot of young business owners or first-time business owners struggle with that. They want the control, and they don't want to give up anything or trust anyone with their baby.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's something that I've always been good at. I've always been, I've always known what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And I'll say it to this day, like, there's something like, I am a creative guy. I'm good at like knowing what product's good and stuff like that. And a little bit on marketing, more so back then, but years ago, it got way bigger than me, and people came in and I was cool with them taking over, and I explained my vision, and they was able to, like take my vision and run with it. And they will, like, I'll walk into the office and they'll show me what we're doing. Like, Jay, this is what we're doing. I've had no involvement with it, but they get it, and it's cool and it works. I just think that me taking a step back and to the side allowed, the brand to really get to the next level, because I wasn't like a control freak trying to like micromanage everybody in the business and, trying to have control over like every little part. Obviously, I want to be involved in certain things and make sure the brand's going in the right direction. But I think there is that push and pull. You have to, allow people to, make mistakes and learn, and you just grow with them.
Can you give us a sense of the size of the brand before that deal, and then what happened after that catalyst of the Foot Asylum deal?
So before we went into Foot Asylum, it was just me. There was just me on my own, and then got with my two business partners, so there was three of us. Just after Foot Asylum, there became four of us. I worked with a designer, and we was based in Birmingham. My business partners are from Watford. Then after that, we just went from like 4 to like 7 people, and then it just grew from that. And then now, that was in 2018. Now in Birmingham, there's like 25 people, and then in Watford, there's around 15.
Can you give us a sense of the size of the business now? I mean, presumably our revenue figures, is that public information? Is that something you talk about?
So before 2018, when I was just it was a bedroom brand, I was doing like £4,000 a month revenue. And then I know in 2018, we did like 200K revenue. And then it just jumped up from there, basically. Yeah.
What are some of the big numbers?
Yeah, I don't really speak on like the bigger numbers, but yeah, we've done well.
Why would you say that is? Not that it's a problem, because I do respect the fact that you don't, but if you had to boil it down as to why you don't do that.
Do you know what it is? The revenue to me never mattered, because no matter what, when my accountant says we've done this, it doesn't matter, because next year we're trying to do even more, or you're always trying to like either stay on the same level or do better. And I just think the type of person I am, I just revenue, as long as we're making obviously money and when the business is profitable, I just don't like to get into like, I just don't need the I don't need the verification or the, I don't mind like people not knowing. It doesn't do anything for me. I don't need people to know like.
But internally, is it almost, you could look at it as a measuring stick, because the more revenue, the more people are buying and liking the clothes. So other people don't know, but are you tracking that internally?
Yeah, of course. I know everything, like, where we were, what we're doing now, what we're predicted to do and all those things. Me personally, I just don't feel like it's necessary to share that information publicly. That's just me.
But is the financial growth something that motivates you?
Not really, because no matter what the financial growth is, there's always going to be another milestone to hit. So it kind of, you get used to it. It's kind of like, okay, we've done this, but then you're trying to do more. So I never got caught up in chasing that. I just focused on, doing good work. And as a result of it, money came, and that was proved to me because, I remember like obviously doing £4,000 a month, and now the brand's doing, way more than that. So, and I'm still the same. I still think about the revenue in the same way that I used to think about it, as long as it's going up.
It's very simple to sort of simplify the journey and say, look, you were here and now you're here. But I'm sure it probably wasn't that simple. Were there any downsides or problems that you experienced along the way when building the brand?
Yeah, there's definitely problems in the early days. Like manufacturing was difficult. I didn't have a lot of money at the time, so ordering product from abroad, the product would come, and I remember there was like spelling mistakes, prints was fading. I couldn't get my head like in
the hoodie.
Yeah, in the hoodie, in the sweatshirt and stuff like that. So those was problems that we've experienced. And then, I remember when we first got into Foot Asylum, I was still doing quite a lot of different jobs, and the product was coming in from Nepal to start with. Then we moved production from Nepal to Istanbul. And when you work with a retailer, you have to, the product comes in, let's say from Istanbul, goes into the warehouse in the UK, then it gets, sometimes it would get reboxed, then shipped into Foot Asylum. And I remember having to do like call-ins with the Foot Asylum logistics team, speaking to them about, if a delivery was going to be late and if it needed to be rebooked. So, that's just one example. But there's been loads of different things that's happened along the way. That's been like hurdles and difficult things to come through. I think one of the main things is staff, because you're dealing with people. So, like hiring, firing, that's a difficult process. I've had to have a lot of difficult conversations, with people along the way. But, you just learn how to navigate those and how to get through them, and you learn what to say and things like that. So, yeah, it's just been a learning process.
What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned about hiring and firing? Because I know personally, I've hired probably about 15, maybe 20 people, and then I've had to fire some of those along the way in our journey. And it's a hard conversation to have, isn't it? Especially if you like that person and you think, well, I like them and I want them on the team still, but they're not really driving much revenue here. They're not helping the business go forward. So maybe they have to get off the train and someone else has to come on. Yeah,
I think that's just the brutality of like running a business. You have to have the business's interest at your heart, and you just have to make sure that, the people are doing what you expect of them. And I suppose if they're not, then that's when you have to have difficult conversations and you have to ultimately let people go. It's all part of the process. At first, it can seem daunting, but, you get through stuff and things happen, and it's just
Do you work with close friends?
No. Well, one of my close friends, is employed, yeah.
And how do you find that relationship?
Yes, good, professional. So, no problems there, to be fair.
Have you ever had to fire a friend?
I haven't had to fire a friend, no.
I think that's something I learned when I was first hiring. The first people I hired, I got way too close to and became that friend that is a friendship bond, like a brotherhood. And then I had to fire that person.
Yeah, I could imagine that being difficult. I haven't personally experienced that. I know a lot of people have, but I think what happens is some people, when they're first starting out, they just like hire all their friends because they're the closest people to them. But then when things get serious, you find out that people aren't, quite good enough or the right person for the job. So
I think the main issue with like hiring friends of people that you knew before, because we're all friends, but we met through business. We didn't know each other before.
Okay.
And I think that like when you hire your friends from like the area or the hood or wherever you're from, they have this image of who you are and they don't want you to become the person that you could be. So then when you're doing things in your business and you're elevating and telling them to do X, Y, and Z, it's like, but that's my man from fucking blah, blah, blah road. And, you know, it's a strange relationship and they don't want to let you reach your potential.
I mean, I've got a small circle of friends and, you know, nothing's changed. I've gone on to do what I do. They still do what they do, but I just think it's a respect thing. You know, they respect what I've achieved and they've supported and, you know, they've been with me every step of the way. And, you know, I respect them as individuals and, you know, it's just all cool.
How close attention are you paying to other brands out there that are maybe going after a similar target market or a similar audience? Are you paying attention? Do you feel like you're in competition with these people?
I'm aware of them. Like I've got a few of like the founders like follow me on Instagram and I'll follow them and, you know, we'll exchange words. I'm cool like that. I feel like when I look back at what Hoodrich did, I feel like we kicked down the door. And then I feel like a lot of brands are now coming after us into that like commercial street space. And it's cool to see at the end of the day. I've got an abundance mindset. There's enough for everybody. So yeah, I think that, you know, there will be brands. There was brands before me. There's going to be brands, you know, after me. And there's brands like currently in the market now. And I just think that, you know, Hoodrich is in its own lane. We do what we do and we just focus on that. And, you know, there's always going to be competitors, but...
Would you ever collaborate with another brand?
Yeah, it's something that we want to do, to be fair. I just think it's finding the right brand and the timing's got to be right. But yeah, definitely that is on the cards. That is something that we're speaking about now.
Who would it be?
So what, like an ideal dream collab? Like an ideal dream collab would be someone like Stussy, Bape, Supreme, like a brand of that level, whether they'd collab with.
Bape would be cool. I think Bape would be cool.
Yeah, whether they would obviously collab with us, that's a different question, but that would be like, that's aspirational.
When you look at those brands, what do you think in terms of what are they doing right in order to be who they are? What can you take from them?
I just think that those brands, they're just authentic, true to themselves. They've got strong, brand DNAs. They've been around for a long time, so they've stood the test of time. And yeah, they've just got a big following, core audience. So yeah, definitely they're good brands to look at and take bits from. Obviously, every brand's different, so we would look at different brands and take what would potentially work for us and implement that into our brand strategy, let's say.
Are you ever concerned about Hoodrich getting too big? Because you're talking these milestones that you want to hit for the future, and it went from a niche brand to something that's more mainstream.
Yeah.
Is there a stage where it just gets so big that it can't get any bigger, and if it does, then it'll ruin the reputation and everything like that?
I suppose that all depends. That's on us as the company to control the growth and, look at things, in detail and just make sure that when we are going into different territories, it makes sense. I think we're a long way from that because there's so many different markets and there's a lot of different markets that are untapped for us. So yeah, maybe that's something that we have to think about, but I think that's quite far away.
So if you had to lay out the next 5 milestones that you want to hit, what would they be?
The next 5 milestones, I think 5. You've put me on the spot. I think
let's do 3. Let's do 3. Yeah. 3 big things.
So I know we want to, start doing some business over in Korea and Japan. So we want to improve our women's wear range as well. And we want to start doing a more exclusive range, which is direct to consumer on our website. So those are a few things that we've really focused on.
So do you currently just trade through, I know you're in Foot Asylum, JD, are there any other locations?
So we trade for our own website, direct to consumer, Foot Asylum and JD Sports. JD is like global, so we're in quite a few different
So what exactly did you mean about selling to consumer on the website? Because you said that that's a goal of yours, but you're already doing it.
I mean, like an exclusive range. So
Right.
like
So it's only you can get it on there.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And it'll be a little bit more high end, let's say.
So speaking of JD and Foot Asylum, you mentioned that was like a pivotal moment for the business. What is the process like of selling in JD and Foot Asylum?
It's different from what what I was used to. It's not too bad, to be fair. Again, that is something that my business partners dealt with, because that was what they was brought in to do. So they handled most of that. Obviously, I had like a basic understanding of how retail works, like margins and stuff like that. But that wasn't my area of expertise.
Do you think it's possible for like a young person to start a clothing brand nowadays? Because it seems like the most popular side hustle, they've seen you do it, they've seen Ben Francis of Gymshark do it. Do you think there's space in the market?
It's a really good question. I think there's always space, I just think it depends on what you're bringing to the table and, what you've got to offer as a brand. But I think there's always space. Definitely. It just depends on if you can be like niche enough and different enough in your own way.
I think it will be interesting, like, to see more like creators and people in this industry starting clothing businesses, because I don't think too many people are doing it at the moment. But I have a real
it's
issue
seen
with
as
this.
merch, though.
I
isn't
have
it?
a
And
real
you wouldn't
issue
wear
with this
that.
because, like, what I hate is like when somebody successful or popular starts a business and it is instantly successful because of who they are, and that business hasn't gone through its iterations and built that reputation and earned its stripes.
I know, he was like
to do.
this the other day at Blue Water. We saw the side store, the side men's chicken brand that they have. It's like, I wouldn't go in there because they haven't built their business properly. They just put their name to it.
I'd rather go into like Slim's Chicken or whatever, because they're doing their thing and they're known as a chicken spot. And it's like, I'd rather go there and give them my business instead of the people that just popped out of nowhere and were able to start something because of who they already are. I don't
But who knows? Slim's Chicken might actually own sides or half of it, but they've just rebranded the front.
Yeah, of course. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's where a lot of people will be able to come in with the clothing industry, because they can just start something straight away off the back of their existing brand that people perceive as cool, and then they've already got motion.
Yeah, but do you know what? That doesn't often lead to having a successful long-term brand. There's been footballers, there's been like people that have like large social media followings that have thought, you know what? I've got all these people, I've got this audience, I'm going to start a brand. They're not really passionate about it. They're just doing it because someone might say, I'll just start a clothing line. So yeah, time will tell. And, those people that have started a brand just through off the back of like their personal brand, but they're not really passionate, it doesn't last, because they don't want to get stuck in. They don't want to do any of the work that's required. So yeah.
Who has done it that we can think of?
Davey.
Yeah, David
Yeah,
doing well.
so-
Isn't Calyx with No Two Ways? That does quite well, doesn't it?
I guess
With
so,
the
yeah.
shoes.
Not heard of those.
It's kind of outgrown their current audience, and you can see, like, we saw some people in Blue Water the other day wearing Daewoo.
Okay.
So it has reached that more mass market. But what separates like merch from a clothing brand?
I think merch, you get put in the merch category when you're like a rapper or an artist and you come out with a brand.
What about like OVO? I feel like that's surpassed merch.
That's definitely surpassed merch because it's ran like an actual brand.
I
with
guess
a
it's
website
taking your
and a
face
store.
away from the brand is probably the key.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think about like the rich versus famous? So like, for example, you're in a position now where you're a wealthy man. You can walk down the street and you can see people wearing your clothes, but they don't necessarily know you because you are behind the brand. How does that feel? Do you like the money versus the fame, etc.?
Yeah, I had this conversation a couple of days ago actually with my friends, and I was just saying it's cool because nothing's changed for me in terms of like I used to go to town, on my own when I was younger, and I can still do that despite what's happened. And it's a surreal feeling really, because obviously like my situation has changed, but what I'm able to do is still the same. And I love that. I love the fact that, you know, I can just go into town, buy something, or just walk around. And yeah, I don't really get stopped, or I hardly get like noticed. So yeah, it's cool. I definitely pick, you know, being like a clothing brand owner like me over being someone like famous who can't go to the shop.
Yeah, private and paid, I think, is the best.
That
way.
will be all over when this podcast gets 10 million views. You're gonna get stopped everywhere.
Yeah.
But I guess that begs the question: why go on podcasts now versus in the past? You haven't. You've stayed behind the scenes.
Yeah, so I think I used to get asked, like I used to get quite a few DMs like to go on podcasts, and I'd reject them for the simple fact I just wasn't. I wasn't happy with, you know, where I was, and I wasn't happy with, you know, what I'd probably achieved. And I just don't think I was ready. And I just always knew I'll know when the time's right, when I'm ready to sit down comfortably and just, you know, speak about my story. So yeah, it was a personal thing, really. I know a lot of people do podcasts throughout the journey, but I'm a person, I was locked in, I was focused. I put in like over 9 years of just solid work. And I always just believed like just working is, I wasn't doing this for like, I wasn't doing it to kind of like get noticed. I'll put the brand first. So like my personal story to me was kind of like, it was irrelevant. It was like, I don't need to be sitting down on podcasts speaking about myself when I've got goals to hit with the brand. Like that was always more important for me. And I just valued that over doing, you know, a lot of other things. But now, you know, a lot of people around me and people in the Hoodrich team, they do say there is value in your story, Jay. And, you know, you should do podcasts and you should speak about your journey, because there's a lot of young people who might be able to relate to it and can learn something from it. So I've had to kind of like, you know what, say, you know, I am going to do this. And I think I'm doing it now for like the kids more so, for them to listen to me and be inspired. And I think that's what's driving me, and that's probably what will drive me now to, you know, go on to potentially do more podcasts and just, you know, speak about my journey. I have gone into schools, secondary schools, and I've done presentations and stuff. But in terms of like actually sitting down and speaking about my story, yeah, you guys are kind of like hearing it first, really.
If you could go to a school and stand up in front of the class and teach the students, but one of those students is you when you were 6 years old.
6 years old.
What would you say to that kid?
6
years old. They probably wouldn't be listening, would they?
One of those students is you at 13 years old. They've aged 7 years pretty quickly, and they're looking up at you. What advice would you give to that kid?
We'll probably send them to Millie if they were 6.
I think the main thing is just saying that it doesn't happen overnight. It really is going to take like a lot of hard work, and it's going to take years. I think this generation now, they look on Instagram, you know, you see like cars, you see nice houses, jewelry, you see lifestyle, and it's at our disposal. And I just think people just see that and they just want it. There's a lot of like instant gratification, and I just think it doesn't exist. It's not real. So I think that I would just tell the younger generation or the younger me just to, you know, starve distractions, stay focused. I'd encourage my younger self to get on a personal development journey a lot earlier as well. I got into personal development quite late. We could speak about that in a bit, but yeah, so just those things.
What does that mean, personal development?
Having a desire to constantly improve yourself, which can then improve your situation. So for me, I was about 3 years into the journey, and my brother introduced me to a guy called Eric Thomas. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He does like, he's like a motivational speaker, and he's got like, it's like albums on iTunes or Apple Music or whatever. And it's just like, he's speaking very passionately about, you know, becoming successful. And that was the first person that, you know, I listened to, and I was like, okay, cool. I found something now that I can listen to motivate me. I already had some traits, like I had, you know, I had passion. I used my initiative, and I had like get up and go. I didn't need anybody to tell me to like do stuff. But there was so much more for me to learn. And then off the back of that, you know, you go down a rabbit hole just like looking on YouTube. And I was listening to a guy called Derek Struggle, and he was speaking about someone that he found really motivating and inspirational. And that guy was called Andy Frisella. When I found out about Andy Frisella, that just changed everything. Like the MF CEO, I just was listening to that constantly, and I was just like applying the things that he was saying to like my everyday life and business. And I just felt like really motivated, and I just learned discipline, and it just went from there.
So changing the subject slightly and talking about business, I saw an article yesterday that you sold the majority stake in your business. Is that true?
Yeah. So I've retained 10%. I sold 40% of my shares, and then my business partners, they sold 50, and they completely exited. So yeah, we sold to Iconics, which is an American company.
So what did that process look like? What's your thinking behind it? What's the situation like with you there now? All of that stuff.
So previously, when I was younger, you know, if anybody would have said, you know, would you sell, you know, Hoodrich, I would have said, never, not in a million years. It's my baby, etc. You know, you get older, things change. And what happened was I was presented with a deal where I could sell majority, so take obviously money off the table, retain 10%, which would, you know, pay me annual dividends, and then have a, you know, a contract, so I'd still be kind of employed. So when I sat and I thought about the deal, and with where I'm at in life now, it just kind of made sense to me. And I just thought it was a good opportunity, not only for myself, but for, you know, the future of the brand, to be involved with a company that could help take Hoodrich to the next level. So, yeah.
What happens if they make some decisions and steer the company in a direction that you wouldn't be happy with, and you have to, with your 10%, just say yes and agree?
Yeah, so before that, there was a lot of initial conversations on, you know, like where they see, what I want for the company, and if I'm going to stay on, you know, what I want the company to do and stuff like that. So those agreements, and, you know, obviously there's certain things in place. And I just think that they want the same thing out of it as me in terms of like longevity. They look after a lot of other brands that they've had for years. They own Umbro, and a few other, you know, big names. So they know about, you know, looking after brands, and the longevity is important. So I don't think we'll run into them problems. Obviously anything is possible. But yeah.
Have you disconnected yourself from it now? Because I know it's in a different industry, but Star Wars was bought from George Lucas, Lucasfilm, and they were aligned. They had a similar vision with him in the negotiations, but then they went off and completely wrecked the property, even though they've got lots of different, you know, franchises under their belt as Disney. Yeah. They still completely wrecked it. He seems to not care too much now because he's passed on his baby and he's focusing on other things. But would you be able to disconnect from the brand if something like that happened?
I think because I've still got invested interest, I don't think I'll ever be able to disconnect unless one day I decide, you know what, you know, I've had a change of heart and I want to completely sell all my shares. But until then, you know, I'm still involved, and I still think that the brand's got a long way to go and a lot to achieve. And as I said, you know, previously, I do think we're getting started. So yeah, and I think that the journey's been crazy, and we've been through a lot. Like, you know, me and the team, and we've learned a lot. And I just think now it's like a fresh start. So with everything we've learned, we're able to, you know, implement, new ways of working. And obviously because the brand's getting bigger, you get like bigger marketing budgets, you can do more, you can be more experimental with products, you can demand more like from factories, and you just get a little bit more power. So it's just about leveraging that for the brand.
So you completed that deal, got a big check.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
How many zeros?
So I
1
turned
billion.
I turned 30 last year, and for my 30th, I took like my close family and friends to Dubai to celebrate. So I remember like there was some back and forward on like when the deal was actually going to complete, but I was on like a boat party for my birthday, and I remember, it had gone through, and my lawyer was saying, it will clear in like a couple of days or whatever. And I remember just being on the boat, and like I checked my account, and it had cleared. It's hard to describe. I think it's more of a sigh of relief, because all the hard work is like it's paid off, and I was looking at my reward for the hard work. But then the person I am, like, I don't think money can't change me. So it was just like, all right, cool. Back to like making sure that, everything's in place with the brand and that we continue to go on. It wasn't about like me just taking a large amount of money and then just like running off and not making sure that the brand's performing how it still needs to perform. So yeah.
How connected are you to stuff? I know you've got the watch, you've got the chain. What does that stuff mean to you?
So I think when I was younger, obviously I was into like hip hop and rap culture, and like watches and chains has always been a part of it. I mean, I like stuff, but I'm not attached to it. Like I like material objects, but it's not like the be all and end all. I think I more so get them as a sign of, an achievement. It's like a mini trophy. So like I'll get something and it will bring me back to like, oh, you got this when you did this, or this represents this. Do you know what? It's more for that.
Did you grab that after the deal went through?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, I grabbed this after the deal went through, and it was just like, I've got a vision board, and, it was something that, I visualized getting. So I was like, yeah.
Did you get it from Patek, or did you have to go third party?
Had to go.
Yeah. Cunts.
Haven't got them links yet. But if someone's watching this that's got links at Patek, trust me, hit me up, man. Hopefully my Instagram will be in the description.
Yeah. What do you think about, just quickly, like what do you think about that whole watch game, and how,
So,
don't want to say corrupt, but it's just,
I'll be honest, like I'm not like massively into like the watch game. I'd say there's a few watches that I can appreciate and I think are nice, but I'm not one of them people that I'm not like buying this to sell it, or like people are saying to me before like, oh, buy this, it's gonna go up in value and stuff. I'm just buying it to wear it or because I like it. Other people, that's their thing, but for me, I'm just buying it because I like it.
Do you have a collection of different watches,
I've got 4 watches.
Nice.
So like it's not a lot. I don't know.
and what are they?
So I've got a Datejust. I've got Cartier Skellington, but that's got like diamonds, so that's been like bust down. And then I've got Rolex Gold Day Date. So just a nice.
Is the date just bust down?
Nah, that's plain. The only one that's bust down is the Cartier Skellington, and that, to be honest, that was the first. No, I got my bigger chain first. Then I got that, and that was just because I always just wanted one. I just really like the shape, and I just think they look neat. So I just go for things like that. Whereas some people, I know they just get plain Jane, and I get it. It's like, of course, but I just think that I had that as something that I wanted to get, and I just had to get it because I'll look back and I'll be like, yeah, Jay, you had something that you wanted to achieve, and you went out, you put in the work, and this is the result. So it's just constant reminders. And I think that was important for me as well, because, you can get caught up in Like I'm the type of person like will win big with something, celebrate for like 24 hours, then it's back to work. But you have to take that time for yourself to, you know, think about how far you've come and what you've achieved. Otherwise, I'll just be in business and I'll never like stop and think, you know what, get this or do this. So it's finding that balance.
When you've achieved your next big goal, do you have anything in mind that you want to buy? Something on that vision board?
Next big goal now. Do you know what? I need to go back to the drawing board and put some bigger goals on there. That's what I'm saying. I've achieved a lot that I set out to achieve.
You just got everything now.
I haven't got everything because there's always new goals and stuff. But I think that since the deal went through, I'm just taking a lot more time to myself, like trying to be in the gym a little bit more regularly, trying to like look after myself, because I think on the journey I did neglect like my own personal health. You know, you just getting up, you just working. Like,
Is that a necessity, do you think? Or can you build a big successful business but have balance in your life?
nah, I don't believe,
I really need the piss.
I don't believe so. Are we carrying on? Are we
Yeah,
stopping?
He does it
context.
every episode.
Okay.
Every episode
Yeah, cool.
about this time, he has to have this every single time.
So Hoodrich is obviously the massive thing now, and you're only 30. Are you concerned that Hoodrich will be the biggest thing that you'll ever do in your life, and you won't ever top that at 30?
That's something that I haven't actually thought about.
I've just put that concern in your head now.
Yeah, do you know what? I think that the type of person I am, I will get involved in different projects. I don't like to force anything. I'd like it to come to me organically and naturally. And I would like for people to just like, you know, reach out to me because maybe they've heard my story, they like what I'm about, and then we'll get into, you know, whatever that is. But I do kind of like the idea of getting into like the tech industry. Like, I don't know, getting into like some kind of product. The future interests me, like the way the world's going and, you know, how we're going to be living in years to come. So I don't know, being an investor in something like that, I've just got like a vision of going into like a really techie office and people are working on a product that I've invested in. So yeah, let's see if that comes to fruition. But
How are we going to be living?
There's just going to be a lot more. Convenience is going to be something that's going to be huge. So I think that they'll make things that are like a lot more. They'll make products which promote convenience, basically. What they are, I don't know. I'm just waiting on someone to pitch an idea to me, and I'm like, you know what? That's a product that I'd use, or I could see this working. So yeah.
So do you think for the next 10 years you'll be content with growing your existing brand, or are you going to go back into the trenches? Is that the thing that you find interesting, the stuff at the start with new brands and businesses?
Yeah, I think that, as I said, I think if it comes organically, I'm happy to, you know, get back in the trenches and, you know, figure things out again. Because that's what keeps you on your toes. I don't want to just like become complacent and just, you know, not just be like, oh yeah, I've done this and not do anything else. I still want to be, busy. I want to be active. I want to have things going on. I don't want to just be like, oh yeah, I've done that now and that's it. Nah, I just think as a man, I think that having purpose is really important. And I just think that's what, you know, keeps you sane and keeps you, you know, I think if you just strive for greatness, that's the best thing for me anyway.
Welcome back, buddy.
We'll let him come back in. How do you want to be remembered? I know it's a bit morbid, but on your gravestone, what would you put there? What would you want on there?
Yeah, I think I just want to be remembered as, you know, someone that had a vision, took risks, and did whatever it took to achieve the goal that I had in my mind. So I believed in everything because I could see it. So even before I became, let's say, successful, I used to have vivid like visions where I could see everything that's kind of happening now. So because I could see it, I believed it, and I just knew that I had to do the work to get there. So when difficult times would happen or hurdles would appear. Because I already saw myself as getting over it, I just knew that this is just something that I've just got to figure out. And I just think I'd like to be remembered as somebody who had like the right approach to like, you know, growing a business and starting something. So yeah.
So is manifestation real?
I would say that I've manifested things, but you got to do the work as well.
I think that's the key difference. You had the vision and then you put the work in.
Yeah.
Most people had the vision. They're like, all right, I'm going to just sit here and wait for it
No,
to
but I
happen.
can just write it down 10 times every day and it will come.
That's what Grant Cardone was saying when we had him on the pod. He was like,
Okay.
oh yeah, if you want a helicopter, write down, I want a helicopter every single day and you'll get one.
And then we,
Part of it's true.
and then I was like, well, you know, but you got to write it down. So, well, you know, where do you go from there? Write it down. So, all right.
Yeah, I do think it's real, but you gotta put the work in. Definitely, I think it's a combination. I printed out pictures, and I went to this shop and I had a canvas, printed out pictures, and I kind of just made like a vision board collage, and I just would look at that every day, and yeah, I looked at it. I've still got it, and it's like everything is ticked off, and even more. So, but that was because obviously I was doing the work as well.
I mean, I've always liked to have some kind of guiding North Star. And at the moment, I really want a big commercial building.
Yeah.
So I printed off a picture over there of, it's actually Ramsey Solutions. They've got a massive building out in America. I've crossed out Ramsey and put Tilbury on the top because I want it to be so vivid.
Yeah.
And that's what I want in the future.
Yeah, I think you have to. I always say like the hard no. If you know exactly what you want and you get specific with your goals, because then you can work towards those specific goals. And I think that I did get specific with like everything, every little thing. So yeah, exactly. You've got to do that because you need to know what you're working
If you
towards.
didn't already touch on it while I was relieving myself, what is your like responsibilities like now that you're only owning 10% and you've sold the majority? Is there any difference?
Spoke about
in
it.
your...
You missed it.
Did you?
No, I'm joking.
Oh.
So yeah, I don't really have the responsibilities that I used to have. There's people in place that run the day to day. I suppose my job is just to support the team in any way they need, if they need me. I'm there for like the important meetings, you know, quarterly meetings. I'll work with, you know, the design director, marketing director, brand director on just like what's going on. Give ideas if it's needed, give feedback. So it's kind of like that. But I do like to, you know, I like to let my team, you know, get on with what they're doing. They're more than capable. They've proven to, you know, not only to me, but to everybody around them.
So is there like a new CEO in the building?
No, so we don't have like a CEO. No.
Interesting.
So the brand's split into two. So like there's Watford base and then there's Birmingham base. I'm based in Birmingham. We have a design director and a brand director, and those guys run the day-to-day, basically.
Have you ever thought about buying up different clothing brands and then guiding them? Because you know the roadmap, you know how it's done.
Yeah, I think the only way I would probably do that is if I saw potential. But I've got to see potential in the founders, in the product, because I know what it takes. So it's like, you know, are you willing to go the whole way? You know, what have you done already? You know, what are you willing to sacrifice? That's a big thing as well, like sacrificing. So
What is the all-time greatest trainer? If you could just have one shoe for the rest of your life, what would it be?
one shoe, I'm probably going to have to say like a white Air Force.
White Air Force One.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is? Like, it just goes with everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd probably say that, you know, yeah. For the if we're talking about for the rest of my life, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a very random question. Where did that come from?
I just thought I'd be interested to know, and I sort of predicted, because everyone says the Air Force.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Timeless.
Timeless,
I
man.
agree.
Classic.
Thank you very much for coming on the pod. Very inspirational stuff. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram, JWaves. Yeah, just on Instagram mainly. I need to post more, but yeah, I'm going to get around to it. But yeah, man.
Awesome. If you enjoyed the pod, make sure to smash that thumbs up button, and we will see you with our brand new episode next week.
Thank you.
Cheers, man. That was great.
That was, how long was we filming for?
No idea. I lose track
that-
of time.